In this video, I'll show you a quick overview of installing a landing light on an FMS Futura. A document with detailed instructions for this modification is linked in the description below. A landing light can make it much easier to land a plane well because you can more easily tell how the plane's aligning to the runway during your approach, both along the axis of the runway and in altitude. Let's take a quick look at the items you need to perform this modification. Links to all of these items are provided in the description of this video. First, you need a controller to turn the light off and on. Then you need the landing light itself. I used a 5-watt white LED available from FreeWing. You need a servo to raise and lower the light. I used the smallest servo I could find to minimize the impact on the plane CG and to make it easier to install. You'll also need a few other items, some basic tools, Y connector, servo extension, and some covering as you see in this list. Put a slot in the flange on the light to mount it onto the servo arm. Then drill a hole in the mounting flange so you can insert a screw through it and the servo arm. Attach the light to the servo arm. I used the screw that was provided with the servo to do this. Remove any servo arms you're not using so they don't bind with your installation. Connect the light and the controller to your receiver and then test their operation. You want to make sure the light comes on when it extends and turns off when the servo is retracted. If the servo isn't moving in the proper direction, you might need to reverse it or use a reversing cable like I did. You've tested your servo and light, then place it on the fuselage and mark the location of the light. Rough cut the hole for the light and then place the light into the hole and check the alignment with the plane's axis. Use a Dremel or a hobby tool to make the hole deeper so you can get the light further in. Make the hole deep enough so the servo touches the fuselage and then mark the location of the servo. Rough cut the servo mounting hole and then put the light and servo into the fuselage and check the alignment again. You want to check that alignment several times to make sure you keep the light properly aligned. Otherwise, you'll have to adjust the location of the servo like I did later on. Use your Dremel or hobby knife to deepen the hole for the servo till you get it all the way down into the fuselage so that its surface is flush with the bottom of the fuselage. Be careful when you're doing this step as the fuselage isn't very thick in this location, so you want to remove just enough material so you can get the servo down just as far as you need, but not too much that you remove the floor where you're mounting the servo. Raise the landing gear and the light and check their alignment. If you've been checking this along the way, you shouldn't have any trouble. In my case, I wasn't checking them and my servo and light ended up being misaligned. So I had to adjust my servo hole, which left a fairly large gap around the servo on one end. It would have been nicer to be more diligent about checking this along the way, and then I wouldn't have ended up with this large gap. Cut a channel into the foam for the servo wire, and then cut a notch into the edge of the plastic so you can run the servo wire into the retract area. Drill a hole through the foam and then the plastic so you can run the lights wire back into the retract area as well. Route the servo and light wires rearward till you reach the end of the gear compartment. When you're done with the installation, you'll want to secure the wires in this area with tape or hot glue so that they don't interfere with the operation of the nose gear or the retract itself. Pull the servo and light wire up through the hole just ahead of the circuit board location so that you can connect the light to the light controller and the servo to your receiver. Do a check of the alignment of the light and servo, and if you're happy with it, go ahead and use hot glue or other methods to glue the servo into the fuselage. Do a final test to make sure the light operates properly with the extension of the retract and there's no binding of the light on the edge of the hole that you drilled. If there is, carve out some foam until the light moves up and down smoothly without binding. When you're happy with the installation, cover the servo to hide it. I just used white duct tape. You could use any sort of covering that you want, whether white or maybe a color to match it into the plane's scheme. The landing line installed, the Futura will be much easier to land. Hopefully it'll give you many safe landings on this nice little airplane. I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments box or use the information provided to contact me directly.